Good evening. I'd like to thank you all for endorsing that support against slavery and sex trafficking. And the only thing that I want to add to that is it took us over 2 years to get a massage parlor that was entertaining sex acts because we had provided you guys with the menu that they put online near the Kwanam Buddhist Monastery. It seems as that the hands of code enforcement were tied way too tight. I don't know if you've improved a little bit on those. There are still 3 massage parlors in Yucaipa that are involved in the sexual trade, and that is directly tied hand in hand. I know it's funny, Mr. Avila, but it's not. And I know it's tied hand in hand with the sexual slavery, so thank you. I have a second public comment that I'm ceding to Dr.
Well, right here I have, I believe it says Tanya. Is it Tanya?
Hi, my name is Dan. I'm ceding my time to Tanya.
Good evening. Comments from Brenda, Yucaipa, California. I would love to be speaking in person tonight, but out of deep sense of responsibility and care for my community, I'm quarantining at home after exposure to SARS-CoV-2. And my husband, Dr. who's an emergency department physician at one of San Bernardino County's most severely impacted facilities. My comments will be read by a friend. In the interest of public health and safety, I ask that the City Council withdraw its support for the lawsuit filed by San Bernardino County against the state of California. Filing this amicus brief during the worst surge of the entire pandemic is a stunning and craven abdication of the duty with which this council has been entrusted, to wit, developing policies and formulating strategies that support the vitality and economic viability of this city. Ensuring vitality, the continuation of life, is rightly listed as the first responsibility, since without a healthy population to participate in the local economy, there cannot possibly be economic viability. Our state has had 2.69 million confirmed cases, 29,699 deaths. San Bernardino County has reported 224,350 cases and 1,520 deaths. 4,320 cases and 56 deaths in the city of Yucaipa. In the past week alone, 593 new cases and 4 deaths. 56 of your neighbors have died from a preventable viral infection, and your most pressing concern is for the need for people to gather at breweries and have dine-in Taco Tuesdays. In his statement regarding City Council's efforts to alleviate the impacts of COVID, Mayor Greg Bowe makes it perfectly clear that the suffering and possible death of 1%, almost 600 members of this community, is a reasonable cost for these businesses to remain open. He then goes on without irony to wish us all a happy and healthy holiday. It is appalling disingenuous to claim that all businesses are essential during a pandemic, while feigning concern for the loss of our public health and safety services. My husband is seeing patients in a tent in the parking lot of his hospital, using the waiting room, the surgical suites to keep up with the influx of patients. Ambulances wait for hours out of service to offload patients because there simply are no beds to put them in and nurses to care for them. The National Guard has been deployed to assist a situation that is described as applying a Band-Aid to an arterial bleed. But certainly the need to get a haircut at Fantastic Sam's is worth completely overwhelming our hospitals and healthcare providers. CNN has been playing a segment filmed at my husband's facility that shows terrifying detail of the impact that COVID is having in our county. I suspect none of our council members have seen it, though, because it's all fake news if it doesn't promulgate the hoax narrative that some of you have very publicly embraced since the beginning of the pandemic. Maybe you think the facility's in the high desert. What does that have to do with Yucaipa? They're at capacity. They're at 300% of capacity. That means they are transferring patients down to our hospitals, to Redlands, to Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. They're all at capacity. They're all at overcapacity. They have tents in their parking lots. National Guard has been deployed. Medical and nursing students are taking care of patients because the system is overwhelmed. The system is in an inflection point, and you have all decided that the best way to address this crisis is to fight the governor's stay-at-home orders by joining a cynical and reckless lawsuit. This is the height of irresponsibility, and it demonstrates a shameful level of disregard for the Yucaipians that you swore to serve. I pray that our communities don't suffer a mass casualty event or a natural disaster right now because we absolutely have no hospital beds. We have limited EMS capacity to handle it. However, since suffering 2 devastating fires this past summer, affecting most of our surrounding mountain communities, we are at extreme risk for deadly flash flooding and catastrophic debris flows. Residents were told at meetings that it wasn't a matter of if, but when these disasters will strike. I know that at least 2 of our council members are fully aware of the horrors that even a 1/4 inch of rain per hour on our devastated mountains could cause because they were at that meeting. How will our already totally inundated emergency medical system be able to respond to an event such of that magnitude? There is no infrastructure that can handle the kind of catastrophic event that could occur. All or most of you describe yourself as godly men. So I'm appealing to the sense of morals and decency that you must aspire to. Yesterday, California's last Republican governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, published a video denouncing the seditious attack on our nation's capital and called on elected officials to have a servant's heart, and went on to describe it as serving something larger than oneself. He called for elected officials to put aside politics and party for the good of the people they serve. This is what I ask of council, to emerge from 4 years of fever-driven that has resulted in public servants at all levels politicizing and minimizing the threat that this virus represents. The reality is that your actions and inactions matter, and that the effects will persist long after toxic leaders and peddlers of conspiracy theories have been swept into history's dustbin. I invite you, no, I challenge you to spend a day with my husband in the emergency department, to witness true patriotism, caring for one's community with a servant's heart, and making a positive difference in the lives of people without regard for politics or personal agenda.
All right, thanks, Tanda. That was, I gave you 2.
No, I get 9 minutes
I gave you-
total.
No, you gave it.
Sessions
there's
and
2.
myself, that's 9
So there's-
minutes.
No, I gave you, there were 6.
No, I have myself as well,
So
that's
I'm going to
9.
ask, could the next, Travis Heaps?
It's 3.
Travis?
Al Kelly for public comments, Dan for public comments, and myself. That's 9 minutes.
No.
Yes, it
It
is.
says right here, Dan Morgan gives to Dr. Bradshaw.
And so does Al Kelly, and Dr. Bratch is right here. That's 3. If you can't do the math, it's 3 times 3. That's 9.
No, it doesn't say that here, so thank you. Travis Heaps? Number 11, okay. Ariana?
Hi there.
Hello.
I'd like to comment on Councilman Avila's words at the last city council meeting on December 12th to refresh your memory, and especially because he was misquoted in the News Mirror. Councilman Avila stated, quote, "As you know, 2020 has been a very tumultuous year, not just with COVID, but with the BLM thing that invaded our town for some time. And then we had this huge fire that occurred in Yucaipa. To say the least, it's been very much of an Uncle Toad's wild ride at Disneyland," end quote. From this statement, several truths are apparent. First, from his use of the diminutive thing and the term invasion, we can see that Councilman Avila continues to have little respect for the racial justice movement, and that he sees it as external to the interests of our town. It's precisely these kinds of inflammatory statements that drew national media attention to Yucaipa over the summer, along with our town's condoning illegal actions, including Councilmember Duncan with his shotgun at Yucaipa, and subsequent emboldening of right-wing ideologies, similar to what we saw escalate into a deadly riot at the Washington Capitol last week. There was no BLM invasion of Yucaipa. Many of those who participated in demonstrations live here, and the events of August 1st were turned into a spectacle only when motorists were preventing from continuing their caravan due to road blockades and harassment by Yucaipians and others. On that note, Ray Casey, did you not make promises to multiple people in this community that there would be a community task force established to look into Yucaipa's reputation in relation to diversity and inclusion? Why has this evaporated? But this is not my main point. Instead, I stress that the lesson to take away from Councilman Avila's statement is not pity for what was put on his plate by circumstances outside of his control, but that the city brought the tumultuous year of 2020 upon itself through partisan, ineffective, and careless actions and words such as those I quoted. You are all doing it again with the recent amicus brief amid a COVID surge centered right here in Southern California. When Yucaipa is in the news for this move, which it inevitably will be, You can't go blaming private citizens for ringing alarm bells or press that cover the story. You will have brought the negative attention once again upon yourselves. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Councilman Avila, I want to draw your attention to one more important lesson in your Mr. Toad's Wild Ride comments. The Disneyland ride is based on the story, The Wind in the Willows, which tells of Toad, who is a friendly and kind-hearted guy, but aimless and conceited. One of Toad's obsessions is motor cars, but Toad is a terrible driver, and every time he gets behind the wheel, he crashes. Eventually, he's sent to jail, but he escapes and begins driving again. Guess what happens? He's reckless and crashes. Mr. Toad the Ride at Disneyland takes an even darker turn, ending in a fiery hellscape. The metaphor is splendid. Bobby Duncan is Toad, and city government is his motor car. You all have let him behind the wheel enough times to know what the end result is going to be if you do it again, and yet you all selected him as mayor pro tem. Don't be surprised.
Ariana, that's actually, I let you go a little bit over the 3 minutes, but thank you. Thank you.
Okay, don't be surprised if you
Thank
continue
you.
to have accidents. Furthermore,
Thank
I
you.
note that there's an
All right, so moving along, that takes us to our consent agenda.